Hello, welcome to the live streaming summit at Streaming Media East. Welcome back from lunch. I hope you all feel rested and relaxed and ready for another panel. Our next panel is about boosting your revenue streams, pun intended, and I was very proud of that title, so I feel like I need to share that. I will be moderating for you. My name is Aubrey Russell. I am the head of production at LiveX, which is a live streaming production company based here in Manhattan. And I'm happy to have these lovely ladies on the panel today, so I'll let you each go down and introduce yourselves and where you work and kind of your background in the industry.
Sure. Hello, I'm Lee O'Connor. I am the head of East Coast and Midwest Sales and Brand Partnerships for Mobcrush. Prior to Mobcrush, I worked at Tastemade doing digital content, and then prior to that, I worked at BBC America for television broadcast. So I've kind of been all over the place as far as career goes. And currently Mobcrush is essentially, we do live streaming for creators. So we want to get as many creators on the platform and help them simulcast to all the different platforms that they want to broadcast to.
My name's Denise Allison. I am the CEO and creator of Stratego Social Media Marketing. And so I work with service-based entrepreneurs in the B2B space to help them create content for their own social media and their own marketing purposes. But one of the streams and the programming that I offer is helping entrepreneurs create their own live video show. So helping them with the content that goes into the show, choosing a theme for their show, helping them set up their scheduling, their strategy, and how to repurpose their content, how to use the tech in their content, because a lot of them have very little experience with live video, and then helping them take their live video and turn it into something that helps them get more customers and really grow their business.
And my name is Liz Georgie. I am the founder of a production company called Mightier. Mightier is an internet video production company, and what that means to us is any kind of video that you watch online, be it a live stream, an in-app video, something that you watch on Instagram or Facebook, we produce that kind of content and only that kind of content. As it pertains to live, I would say that we do 90% of our work on YouTube Live and on Facebook Live. And we do a ton of work for corporations, helping them figure out how to use live as a tool for launching new products, launching new service offerings, or rolling out new features to their products, and also just generally using it to communicate with their, hopefully, loyal customers.
Awesome, thank you all for being here. So obviously this panel is about revenue, but I think revenue is just one form of success that you can use to judge your content online. So before we jump right into revenue, I'd love to talk about some other forms of success measurement that we can use. So we have revenue. What else do you often find with clients?
I mean, I think it depends on which kinds of clients you're talking about. I think, you know, for Mobcrush, success means getting as many creators as possible onto the platform and then getting them paid. But then to do that, making sure that you're building really authentic brand partnerships. So making sure that any kind of brand you're working with is really authentic to the creator that you're going to work with, because otherwise it's just not going to work with their audience. You're not going to get consumers to move over. I think, you know, for me personally and for Mobcrush, you know, 64% or so of people who watch live content with ads in it actually take action on those ads, whether that's going to the website, or buying the brand, or exploring the brand further. So that's obviously one of the points of success, is seeing that kind of conversion and seeing people go from, you know, creators making money and, you know, honing their craft while also getting, you know, brand awareness and getting brands out there too.
When you say, sorry to interrupt,
Yeah.
when you say ads in the content, do you mean ads that are like pre-rolls or rolls in the like mid-rolls, or do you mean actual like targeted advertising?
I mean, yeah, in streams. So it's actually, for Mobcrush, we don't do banners or boxes or pre-roll or mid-roll or any of the standard. It's all integrated. So essentially the most standard ad product we have is a lower third. We will do a watch with me, which is essentially having the content that you would air in pre-roll in a box that's picture-in-picture. So it's a co-viewing experience with the creator and the audience that's watching it. So that's kind of the way that we look at the ads. I think, you know, ad platforms obviously do it differently because they're going to have that before, after, and around. But we make sure that everything's actually integrated into the creator's content.
Mm-hmm. Denise?
Yeah, when you're using live video as a piece of your marketing strategy, and that's where you're sharing your content marketing, the overall goal is to convert your viewers into customers. So that's always the ultimate measure of success, but it's not really an instantaneous thing. So people aren't going to watch one video and go and buy from you. It's about building that relationship. So some of the measurements or analytics you want to be looking at are things like engagement. Are people commenting on your live video, asking questions, or even if you're asking them questions, are they taking the time to leave you a comment, ask for more, or even liking your video or sharing your video? So engagement is one of them. Video views are helpful as well because, again, video views and engagement, they're not going to lead to revenue or to more sales, but they're an indicator to how interested people are on that topic. So if you do a live video and you have like 12 views, and then you do another live video and you have 12,000 views, it's telling you that the content of the second one is more interesting, and that's what people want to hear more about. So those things can offer you clues as to where you should be creating your content. But also the people who are taking the time to engage and ask questions and watch, those are warm leads that you can hopefully turn into clients or customers at the end of the day.
So I would just say, I think that one of the most important things is do your customers like what you are live streaming? I think we often have a tendency to say, is it driving audience engagement? Is it driving leads? And those things are so important. And then I think that there is another layer to this, which is the content that you're providing in live streaming uniquely suited for this live environment, and does it add value to the end viewer because it is so well suited to that live environment? So if you just think about whatever content your brand is considering using in a live platform, I would 100% look to see, is your audience expecting this to be on live? So is it because it's a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity? For example, a live event, a keynote with an impressive person, a Q&A that you couldn't have in any other format. Second, is it something that there is an inherent value by the community being able to comment in real time and be part of the conversation in real time? So are they going to be able to talk about or give feedback to or ask questions of the person that they're sharing with online? And then finally, does it add to the ecosystem of your content overall? You know, all brands now are creating a huge volume of content on a variety of different platforms and channels. So how does this live video contribute to the overall ecosystem of what you're putting out there?
Yeah, cool. So let's specifically start with revenue, because that's what everyone came here to hear about. So we can break it down by social media website as well, but I think the majority of live streaming is happening on social media sites, not necessarily on a white label player on someone's page, specifically not necessarily for interactivity. While there are a lot of players that allow for very good interactivity, a lot of people are just scraping Facebook comments for interactivity or using another app for that. So let's go by social media and see what the pros and cons are for that platform, specifically speaking with revenue. So let's start with YouTube.
Well, you know, so how many of you are live streaming on YouTube right now in some way? Okay, great. So approximately 30% of our group. So I would say, you know, in general, YouTube I see as an opportunity in two ways for boosting your revenue streams. The first way to think about it is actually not through the live event itself. It's actually to think about the long-term value of that video beyond that live event. So while the live event is going to drive a lot of interest, traffic, dynamic engagement, you want to actually be thinking about, what can I put inside of this video? What content can I be producing inside of this video? And what value adds can I put inside of this program that are going to have a long-term value for my revenue capabilities? For example, we've worked with a brand for a really long time that's a huge believer in doing live streaming exclusive promo codes. So if you're working with an influencer, as an example, and they're going to be included in your live stream, having a referral code that is specific to the person appearing in that video helps you to create an ecosystem around that promo code to understand and track where that revenue is coming from. Is this personality a big sales referrer? Is this personality a sales referrer because we used it one time in YouTube Live, or is it because it's being connected to their entire YouTube presence? That's an example that is really tangible for YouTube. I think another way to be thinking about it is just if you're gonna run ads, if you really are gonna take advantage of the Google Ad Network and you're gonna run ads on that YouTube video, that's the second way to think about monetizing that piece, but you have to be extraordinarily thoughtful about if that is the desired outcome for how you want to generate revenue on YouTube. And you know, I can dive into that a little bit further, but for now, let's just say I've seen many people make bad live videos with a shelf life of exactly a week, hoping to get long-term Google ad revenue off of them. And that isn't going to actually work. You need to think about probably a year of value to get your money back on that return. So think about a year. Is this content relevant for the next year to be able to get that Google ad revenue back?
And there's lots of legal restrictions with YouTube as well.
Exactly.
If your video has ever been pulled for you know, any audio that sounds familiar to any licensed audio, then you no longer can make money off of that video, and now that company can step in and take any money that you should have gained from it. So there's so many steps with YouTube.
Yeah, don't just read the Google network, or don't just read the YouTube's restrictions, also read the Google Ad Network restrictions, because sometimes you'll be surprised what code or what policy they're going to pull a violation on. So just be thoughtful about that.
And check often.
And check on it. Changes all
how
the time.
they're changing because it's a weekly battle.
Yeah. Denise or Lee, did you have any YouTube comments?
I think you covered the main point, and that's really applicable to most other live video platforms where you want to be creating content that can live on, because most of the people who end up watching your video, they're not, of course you want people to watch your video while it's live, because that's where you're getting the engagement, that's where you're getting the interaction, and that's where all the power happens. But a lot of the people are actually watching that video after the fact, and if it's content that can live on or is evergreen and doesn't necessarily only have legs for an hour or for a week, then it can continue to bring you leads, bring you traffic, and it can help you grow the relationships with your audience and really help you grow your audience and your referrals and leads.
Yeah, I think especially with YouTube having a year-long shelf life is really important, because other social sites like Twitter, we'll talk about Twitter next, your video is not going to live on someone's feed for a year.
Right.
It only needs a shelf life of a day or two before there are no more views for it, whereas YouTube has curated a channel for you and anyone can go and search for it at that time. So moving on to Twitter, what are some ways that, that Twitter allows you to boost revenue?
I mean, I think for me, it's a lot of it is holistic. So how does Twitter interact with Facebook and YouTube, and how you're working with each of those pieces of the puzzle? So I think for YouTube's sake, you do want to have that shelf life. Whereas exactly what you said with Twitter, you want to utilize Twitter, and in my opinion, the majority of creators can utilize Twitter as a promotional tool. So I think you want to build up your audience there. You can certainly stream to Twitter, but the biggest benefit you're going to get from a revenue perspective is pushing people to watch your content from Twitter to one of the places that they're more accustomed to watching live content, like YouTube or Twitch or Facebook even. I mean, you can certainly go live on Twitter, and I think the shorter the better from a live perspective for revenue purposes and attention spans on Twitter. But we've seen a lot of success with, for example, we worked with Netflix on a campaign where, Twitter was included in it, because for Netflix that's massive for them. But what we did was we live streamed from Twitch with Shroud, who's one of the bigger creators there. And what they did was promote the live stream from Twitter, which then got picked up by Dr. Disrespect, who's one of the other big gamers across there. So he wasn't even part of the campaign, but he saw the promotion for the live stream, and he was like, I'll be watching this, which means now his audience. So again, Twitter can almost become this exponential growth place for revenue, especially if you're throwing people to a place where they're more accustomed to watching and consuming live content. So I think Twitter can be a really great opportunity from that respect, but it's also a great place for, we don't do as much snackable live content. It's going to be longer streams, especially with gaming and IRL and event coverage and things like that. So I think, Twitter is also great for shorter pieces of content where you want to get your revenue up from that.
Go Go for it.
Yeah.
Are there ways that you've encouraged creators to work with Twitter in that particular area? Like maybe if the live show is happening, do you go live for maybe the first 2 minutes or 3 minutes of the show and use that as your clip on Twitter, or is it just promotional with a with a link?
Let me just repeat the question so we have it in the recording. No, you're all good. So you want to be able to, are we just streaming, is it better to stream on Twitter just a little snippet of what the live stream is going to be to bring people over? Or is it, if you're going to go live on Twitter, should you do the full length of the show?
Yeah, or have you had success on various methods?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, for both, I think the first piece would be what we've done when we're actually promoting something that's going to air or be live in the future is that we'll do at the end of a live stream that, let's call it, say Shroud does or Ninja does or whatever. At the end of that live stream, they'll say like, next Thursday night, I'm doing a partnership with Netflix around Bird Box, so make sure you tune in and we'll have that clip, that promotion, like them speaking to the audience, and that's live still, but it is, referencing what they're going to be watching. And then during said stream, there's also that opportunity to stream from both places. Again, it's going to be dependent on that creator and the piece of content, because if the creator makes the most sense for their audience on Twitch, then they're going to link out to Twitch from Twitter so that their audience, because that's where they're expecting to see them, or in some cases they're exclusive to live streaming on certain platforms because they've signed contracts with those platforms. Which means they can promote from Twitter with a small piece, but they can't actually live stream to it sometimes. So it can be one or the other, really.
Yeah, I mean, we often say that you should be on all the platforms for the clients that we have, just because people are, from what we've found, people are less likely to travel platform to platform. If they're a follower of you on Twitter, but they don't follow you on YouTube, and you say, go to my YouTube, they're less likely to do that. Whereas if your video pops up in their Twitter feed, then they'll watch it. Mm-hmm. Are you finding that that's not as true as we like to carve it in stone?
I mean, I don't know what your guys' perspectives are from a creator, being creators and working with them, but I think, I don't think you have to be on all of them. Mm-hmm. I think you want to have presence throughout social, but I think if you're on Twitch and you're a gamer and that's your bread and butter, then it's going to be harder to build a new audience on YouTube than to garner and grow that audience in a place that you already are. I think if you're, you guys can speak better to kind of when you're just getting started and things like that, because I think, it's almost great to throw it out there and then see what really sticks and then hone in on something like that too.
Yeah, I would say the recommendation of being on all the platforms is not a great one. Because you just need to decide and determine where your ideal customers are and where your audience is going to be, and really put the focus into that. What happens when you try to be on everything? So you try to be on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, YouTube, Twitch. Everything gets diluted, you get stretched too thin, and you don't really create a really good presence in one place. So to create one really good presence on one of the platforms is going to serve you much better as long as your audience is there than trying to do everything. So I always recommend people to choose one and really go for it, and then once you start getting things happening there, you can choose one or two supporting ones, but not trying to be everywhere because your audience isn't necessarily on all of them. So it's really about meeting them where they are and finding where they are once you know who your target audience or your target customer is.
I think I'm going to just say I'm somewhere between the two of you, where I would say that just like anything else in life, whether it's sandwiches, salads, your clothing, whatever, one size does not fit all. And whatever platform is right for a brand, just adapting for that platform. So, for example, something that we see often is we have a lot of clients who are like, we are Facebook Live, we only do live on Facebook because we have the biggest audience there for live. But then we'll take, maybe that speaking event or that tableside conversation, and then we'll edit it into a few 30-second highlights for Twitter, because on Twitter, that's where their audience is getting the most value, is from those little nuggets. And then, maybe we've got a 5-minute composition that's the highlights of all of the best that goes on YouTube. And that fractional approach of saying what is the best piece of this content, how can we maximize the value of what you've created over here to really duplicate, triplicate, and really grow the effort of what you're doing here as a brand.
Yeah, I really like that point. There's a lot of power in repurposing your content, and Lee can probably speak to this as well, but you might do, like Liz said, do a Facebook Live and then cut out the pieces of it and create other types of content. So it might be 30-second videos, might be 3-minute videos for LinkedIn, but not the same approach doesn't really work on all of the platforms because there's different nuances, different audiences. So taking the live video, taking the MP4 video, chopping it all up, and repurposing either the video content or even taking static images and turning them into Instagram posts or Instagram stories or LinkedIn content, Twitter content. That can be a great way to create more content without just spamming all of your platforms with the same stuff, but also giving people something different to interact with.
I've even seen, I have this one client who is a publishing house, and they'll do like these really formal live streams on YouTube where it's like tableside conversation with the coffee cup, and it is extremely polished and perfect, and it's high in production. And then afterwards, we go into the green room with the authors, and the authors do an Instagram live that's extremely casual. It's like all the talk that we didn't have a chance to talk about, all the questions you didn't get to ask before, and that hybrid approach to saying, okay, we are already expending a ton of effort to get all these people, right people in the room. We're getting all of us together at this time. We've carved out this production resource to be able to make this happen. How can we maximize then just the value of the talent that we've put in this room to get an additional value add on Instagram or get an additional value add on on Snapchat, any of the other platforms where you're going to have a one-to-one style conversation with your audience?
Okay, cool. What about revenue on Facebook with Facebook Live videos? How are we seeing that used?
Yeah. Well, it's really important on Facebook Live to include a call to action and some micro calls to action. So like I said earlier, you're not necessarily going to convert a customer from one Facebook Live, but it's important that if they stayed and watched your video, that you keep that conversation going. So a micro call to action, it could be something like, hey, make sure that you like my page and that you see all the rest of the content that's going out. Another micro call to action would be, hey, I go live every Tuesday morning, make sure you tune in next week. And then the other activity of asking for engagement is going to do this. It's going to give you more reach in the algorithm, and so that you're seen by more people. But if they take the time to comment on your Facebook Live, that means that the more they interact with you and engage with you, the next time that you go live or post something to Facebook, they're more likely to see your content pop up in their feed. And so that gives them more ability to get to know you more, like you more, and trust you, which is the know, like, and trust factor that you need in any marketing activity to build the foundation to convert someone into a client. The call to action could be something like, hey, I have this great free download, go and get it, and then it gets them on your email list, and so you have 2 pathways for engagement. And so it's doing things like that and making sure that you don't waste all of this goodwill that you've created with the Facebook Live, but you're making sure that they are going to see you again, they're going to connect with you in different ways, and that you're going to be able to grow that relationship so that they can be converted into a client when the time is right.
And so by adding those people, how is that affecting your revenue? Adding those likes and those followers?
Right, so the more people you have liking and following you who are potential customers, the more ability you have to get more customers, and the revenue in my case and in the case of my clients, the revenue is coming from selling them your services.
Okay, so more about selling things with using Facebook as a marketing tool and less
Yes.
of like actually making money with a live on Facebook. Okay.
I mean, it's very, very difficult with Facebook unless you have a show. So there's sort of like 2 pathways. Pathway 1. You create a show that everybody loves watching on live, and it becomes an absolute gangbusters win. Great, good for you. Maybe you can get a deal with Facebook Watch, and that's one way that you can start to develop a revenue stream through having an audience built in through Facebook Watch. Less than 0.5% of us will ever achieve that. So option 2 becomes a more realistic path, which is thinking through ways that you could build exactly what she's describing, putting things in your programming that help you acquire the leads to do sales later, or paying money to promote those live streams after the fact. So an example, you can do a boost post on any video that you've put on Facebook. You can do a boost post, and when you boost that post, you can actually add a call to action that's a physical button. So, you know, buy this product that was mentioned now, sign up for this e-course now, book this service now. So you can actually use the promote functionality to build a direct call to action that clicks directly through to your channels to be able to make sales.
Yeah, and the other option you have kind of on that point is whenever you have people who have viewed your video, you can actually put them into a pool with Facebook ads and target them later on in a later Facebook ads campaign. So if you wanted to promote a program or an event or a product or a service or anything, you can actually target them directly with that ad, and you can put as the call to action button, buy now, and send them right there. So those video views, the fact that they're watching the video is great, but they can also be aggregated into a pool, which you can then target later on for other purposes, for something that would be related to the content that was in the video.
I think particularly with Facebook too, it's a matter of algorithmic like preferability, because live is going to be pushed to the top of feeds. It's going to give a notification. So especially on Facebook, like by going live, if you already have built a brand, again, like you have to take all of this into consideration, but if you have a built brand, or if you have that ability to boost it with media dollars, you're automatically going to be boosting your revenue by being live more than a static post or a general social post, whether it's like pre-produced content or whatever the case may be. So that live, like if you are producing an incredible TV quality show for Facebook, utilize live as a promoting opportunity for that show as well, because it's going to be algorithmically preferred by Facebook, because they want to make money quick too. So.
Yeah, awesome. So I feel like YouTube and Facebook are the main ways to actually boost revenue on the site itself. And Twitter's a great tool to point people to those sites, and also to build a fan base within.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Instagram works awesome though too.
Yeah.
If you have the ability, how many of you are working with a brand that has great personalities inside of it? Either yourself or someone that you know, your CEO, your VP. Okay, well, I feel bad for all of you.
Let's pretend they raised their hand.
Let's pretend you all have an incredible personality that you can leverage for Instagram Live. I would say if there is a personality that you can leverage for Instagram Live, and you have built the following of your Instagram account to at least 10,000 followers, the fact that you can build in a swipe up functionality on any stories-based video, including live videos, allows you to directly connect to purchase points.
Yeah.
So if you're thinking about, like, I want to have somebody buy this exact product, when they start talking about how great that product is on your Instagram story, all they have to do is swipe up to buy it. And so Instagram, I think, is actually really underutilized for this purpose, but I think it's primarily because it's incredibly difficult for most people to look in this phone screen and be dynamic and engaging and really sell. And so that's why I say, make sure you have a great personality. If you have a great personality, have them do some media training on how they can be really connective in that mobile format. And then once they are really connecting and they've got the energy behind it, having them utilize that functionality in a one-to-one direct with the audience to really convert those viewers onto your channels.
Yeah, the thing that's different about Instagram Live than some of the other platforms we've talked about is it's literally just going to be a talking head, or you're showing what you're seeing. So you can't put all of these production pieces in it with like some underlays and overlays and everything happening in lower thirds. It's just you talking to the camera. So that becomes a great opportunity to show behind the scenes, have side conversations, side interviews, and really point people to the main event. So it can be great if, like you said, you're having an interview and you're showing maybe before or after with the people who are involved, or it can be just the person who's going to go and interview. But it's really sharing thoughts and being a little bit more in the moment than you might be with a lot of Facebook Live and YouTube Live, which tend to now at this point have a production element going into it.
Yeah, we use Instagram stories similarly to Twitter as a promotional tool and as a back end for the brands. Like, as we're connecting brands with creators, we have those creators then have that swipe up capability on Instagram, because that's one of the only direct to market. You know, you can put in some short code like bots that will actually insert themselves into, you know, the Twitch comments or in your captions or on YouTube. Like, you can actually insert links to the brands there. And again, this is one element of all of it, but that's another way too to kind of have that short code built in there so that people have a constant opportunity to click through to something else as well.
Do we have any questions initially about any of these sites? Yes.
One thing that I work for a media company, and our main source of making revenue from live streams is by selling ads or logos popping in and stuff like that in our live streams. And like the social platforms seem to make that very difficult to do, or like legally. Like, so do you see that trending more towards like that becoming increasingly difficult, or them being able to work more with you? Because it seems like, especially like Facebook has all these rules, like you can't have a logo in the first 3 seconds or something like that, and it's just like becomes so difficult that we've considered like going on to our own, building our own player on our site to be able to do it. And I'm just curious if like we see it trending more that way, or whether the platforms are going to be more willing to work with brands. They just seem to be very targeted towards individuals versus brands right now.
Yeah, so, sorry, just let me repeat the question really quick. No, just about using branded logos or advertising within a social site. The sites are now flagging it because there's bots, not humans, looking at it, pulling it down for copyright or for any other issue. I find that it's less difficult if you're white labeled, but we can kind of speak to that as well. If we think that the sites are trending in the direction of becoming even more strict about that, or if they're going to relax their rules.
I would guess that it's going to be increasingly difficult to be doing things like that and selling your own ads inside of Facebook Live or anywhere live, and some activities that we can see that are pointing towards that is the increasing difficulty to get any organic reach inside of Facebook and other platforms. So there was the Facebook apocalypse in 2018, which basically, if you have a business page that isn't a brand that gets tons and tons of engagement all the time, your reach was very minimal. So the average is about 2% organic reach, and Facebook has just announced another major change to its platform. So your app inside of your Facebook app probably looks different now, and they did a rebrand kind of thing. But the important thing to note is that they are really going to take away the importance of the feed, and they're going to be focusing a lot more on groups and connections and those kinds of one-on-one interactions, where they're taking away a lot of the power and the capabilities that business pages get. And by doing that, what's really happening is businesses want more reach and they want more visibility, so they're buying up all the Facebook ads, and it's on a bid system. So the more in demand it is, the higher the price becomes. And so one day it's probably going to become like traditional media, where the only people who are actually able to buy those ads and have the budget for it and have a realistic reason for doing it, because the return on investment is going to be bigger brands. So I would say, why would they loosen up on that? I would say it's probably only going to get more challenging.
I'm going to make a completely wild suggestion, which is that the FCC is only going to continue to make it more and more difficult for there to be different ad compliance rules across all these different media platforms. I don't think it would be lovely to pretend like every new platform is not going to eventually have to abide by the same regulations and rules that, our traditional media platforms have to abide by, but I think it's inevitable. And so one of the things that I really advocate for when I'm speaking to the brands that we work with is really work your people and your leadership to be brand facing in how they're doing those types of content. So as an example, if you're doing a live stream and having somebody say, you know, I am the vice president of such and such brand, and I'm here with this vice president from this brand, and they're sponsoring today's live stream. Thank you so much for sponsoring this live stream. Having it be really people focused, and it literally might mean that you have to do some testing and some iteration to figure out how to make that best work in the partnership. But I often find that you run into a lot less issues when it's a more people-facing first approach, as opposed to the more logo-centric, let's add in a little bit of like graphic asset here or there type of promotion, because it's not as easier, one, for bots to identify, and two, it puts you in a position of being able to offer something really special that differentiates you from everyone else also trying to do that type of promotional approach.
And I feel like even just from a human perspective, I'm more likely to want to go and find out more about a brand if I've met a person from that brand that I like and that represents it well. So it kind of.
There is an amazing article in Fast Company, and I wish I could just like digitally take it from my brain and put it into you. But there's this amazing article in Fast Company about how some of the fastest growing companies of the last 5 years have a really dynamic person at the front of the brand who actually has a larger following or an equally large following as the brand itself. So if you look at brands like Glossier, where yeah, Glossier has a huge social following and they do a lot of video and they have a lot of different ways that they have been promoting using their content and tutorials and how-tos and all of that. But at the end of the day, their founder is equally out front, you know, demoing products herself, showing how she uses the products, doing live Q&As with customers on Instagram Live, especially in the early days. I mean, that kind of approach is really fascinating to me because I think it just speaks to why we're all there in the first place. I mean, is there a single person in this room who's like, yes, I go to Facebook all the time for branded live streaming? I mean, we don't. We absolutely do not. I go to Facebook to connect with random people I don't want to talk to anymore. Like, that is the real reason why we're there. And so pretending like there isn't that dynamic, a human dynamic, is sort of a fallacy. And I think we should actually embrace that aspect as we're putting together our programming.
And I mean, I think that's absolutely true. I think it's the face that you're putting out there and the knowledge there. I think there's also an element of like building the relationship with the platform too. I mean, there's always, you're obviously as a business, you're gonna have somebody on the Facebook end or the Twitch end or whatever end of the business that you're working on. Build that relationship out, because a lot of times there are, you know, as we were saying, like the FCC rules are what they are, but then each platform has their own, and there's ways of saying, like, to be fair, like, everybody wants to make money. That's why you guys are in this room, is to build revenue. So if you can find a way to work with Facebook and work with Twitter and work with them so that you're creating something that's going to be beneficial to you, your creators, your brand, whatever the case may be, but it will also benefit Facebook, Twitter, Twitch in whatever way, that whether it's the after the live stream, they can put ads against it, or you know, however you can kind of provide an added value to the platforms as well. Sometimes that can help just to get them to loosen up a little bit around what it is that you're posting or how you're posting it.
Any other questions? Yes.
Well, because now you're mostly talking about revenue through like YouTube, Facebook. But what if you want to go on your own and have like either a video on demand or a subscription system? Like, do you think that by doing that, it's possible to still add some like I don't know, advertising in the video, or if they pay, it shouldn't be there? Or
So adding ads in like a white label player or an OTT service.
So when you're saying, so you want to build your own channel, let's say, across an OTT platform versus a social platform. Is that what you mean? I mean, I think you're going to want to garner viewership from social media, so you're going to want to have active pages there. So building out a channel on an OTT, you can essentially have a similar channel across each of those social platforms and utilize them the way that we've been talking about, in the sense of use Instagram stories so people swipe up to go to your page at that, you know, like get it so that you have to test and play with it a little to see what works best for whatever kind of business you're running. As long as it's not what you're trying to do isn't competing somehow with the platform that you're posting on, then it's a really valuable way to draw viewers there. Live is tough for that, to be honest. Someone is less likely to click out of a live video to go somewhere else So that's why, you know, swiping up from Instagram stories, clicking through from Twitter, or, you know, having YouTube channel that is cut downs or the best ofs or behind the scenes that then make people want to go watch that as a separate viewing occasion is sometimes the best way to kind of draw people in from social and utilize social for revenue on other channels too.
I think the fitness industry does this really well. If you look at the fitness industry, a lot of them are doing their own, they're building their own infrastructure because of this exact reason. They're trying to own a lot of the content, but they have many different partnerships that they're utilizing with different channels and different platforms. I would say in terms of your direct question of should I be able to sell sponsorships within my own live content, I mean, you can do whatever you want. Just listen to your audience and determine whether or not that makes sense. And I think this is, again, an opportunity to look at the fitness industry where I think they've done a great job of saying, you know, this workout is sponsored by this workout gear, and then it kind of gets out of your way for the rest of the program, and the production itself is still something great to watch. So just be thoughtful about that and how you strategize with those brands.
Or even if you think about product placement in movies, like it depends what the videos that you're talking about are, but it could be simple enough that in your background you have the product that might be sponsoring what those videos are. So that could be a way to do something like that as well.
But I think the biggest thing with that is if you're wanting to sell ads in that way, you need to be able to show viewer numbers. So the best way to do that is to kind of start with the social following is kind of what we're getting at, I think.
Yeah, and you can use, I mean, Mob Crush, essentially like every day I'm selling to brands the viewership of the creators that are on our platform. So that is what we sell. Like Mob Crush is a portal, not a platform. So the more you can align yourself, and I'm not just saying with Mob Crush, but the more you can align yourself with things like that where someone else is taking some of the onus, like and again, it's all related to viewership. If you have that viewership though, then people are gonna wanna work with you, and you can ingratiate yourself with someone who's doing something kind of similar to what you're doing, who's someone that you look up to, and kind of work with them to understand better, and then that builds that network. And every kind of network piece that you can build and put in place helps you find someone who's then invested in your success, whether it's for their own gain or because they want to help you and they want you to up-level what they're doing as well. So.
Cool. Yeah, last one. Go ahead.
I know we're ending.
You're good.
What about Snapchat? Are we going to give any love to Snapchat?
Talk about Snapchat quickly.
Snapchat is a platform that got a lot of interest when it first became a thing. And now it is really not a great place to be unless you're marketing something to teens. All of the great things about Snapchat have now been integrated into Instagram stories, and Instagram has 1 billion people on the platform. It has more people watching stories than is actually watching the feed. So if you are interested in that type of marketing, you can take advantage of that platform to do that kind of thing. Snapchat has dropped the ball on a lot of things, such as having an easy way to connect with people. That's not like, hey, I'm gonna post my username on Facebook so that you can connect with me on Snapchat. There's no feed. Like there's an ability to market inside of the discovery platform, but again, most of the people using Snapchat is people under the age of 18. So if that's your market, then go for it, but otherwise it's not really worth it, and they've not been getting the attention that they once, or that they were for a little while in the past.
I'll give some love to Snapchat in that I think it works really well for promoting a live stream for a very specific audience. So if you have a live stream that you think is going to be huge with teenagers or with the college age set, or alternatively and rather interestingly, an international audience, I think Snapchat still has a lot of international cachet. So if you have kind of a hybrid audience that looks like that proxy generally, then promoting a live stream on Snapchat is a great idea.
I just deleted the app because I could never figure out how to work it.
Well, it changed every week.
What a resounding review.
All right, well, thank you, Denise, Lee, and Liz for being on the panel, and thank you all for being here. They'll be around if you guys have any more questions, and we'll see you after the next one.
And if you enjoyed my loudness, I have a solo panel on converting viewers into paying customers. I think one of these other rooms at 2:45.
There you go.
Cool.
Thank you.